Mr. Sugarman, but the comparison was made that if the speed limit was 80 and you were driving at 100 miles an hour, even if it was 5 minutes, you were breaking the speed limit. You were over the speed limit of 80. You were driving at 100. So it wasn't a question of was he over or was he not. If the guard stopped you within that 5 minutes, you got your ticket. It goes back to the same
so it goes back to maybe...
Sorry, just 1 second, as before. In this instance, for more than 5 minutes, it was 20 times over the limit and nothing was done. I'm just telling you, it sends out the wrong message, Mr. Lane. The complete wrong message. And Mr. Sugarman came here, and I have to say, he gave a very convincing submission to this meeting. And he would contradict some of the things that you would say. And I believe that a meeting relative to that case with Mr. Sugarman might bring some closure to it. But I cannot understand why the bank wasn't sanctioned.
So let me come back, and Derval earlier on explained how do we think about sanctioning in terms of the potential damage of a breach, the consequences. Maybe you can rehearse those.
Wreck the country, those kind of breaches.
Well, no, let me profoundly disagree with that point.
Of course
that the Irish banking system, the retail banking system, of course, faced, which is separate to Unicredit. Unicredit was, if you like, is part of the international banking sector that is here, but is not feeding in to the local banking system. They're entirely different issues. Unicredit, is an international banking group of which there's one unit here. That has not really too much read across to what was going on to the Irish banking system, which had liquidity issues, which had solvency issues, and so on.
I'm talking relative to regulation.
But again, the proportionality issue is how do we, when the regulations, when there is a kind of a prima facie breach of regulation, issues about was it self-reported, how long did it last, how consequential is it? And the liquidity of one subsidiary within an international banking group is a different question to the liquidity of a retail bank operating here. So, if you like, it's not as simple as the speed limit in a traffic law. There's a wide range of factors here, taken very seriously, 2 investigations taking place. But again, going back to the issue of the only type of sanction is not just the kind of administrative sanctions procedure. There could be supervisory, private supervisory warnings, remediation programs, and so on. So a lot of things can happen when there is a breach, but the conclusion in this case was the breach was temporary, it was not systemic, it was not persistent, and the bank stands over that assessment.
So the risk manager, and I'm going to leave it at this for the moment, he reads the legislation, he reads the law, and he understands fully his obligation under this. And he decides that he's so frightened by what's happening in the bank about not just one case, one day, but a number, that he decides to risk his job and go and tell the central bank there's something wrong here. He went to the guards and said, I've broken the law, arrest me. And he would be due to get 5 years for that. And what happened to him then was, well, nothing happened to satisfy the fact that he had reported this wrongdoing. He lost his health. He lost his job. And he did it out of the obligation that he had under legislation to report to the central bank. So if you don't want these international banks that are here to bother looking at the law, then why would we have the law anyway?
So that's a total misdescription of how we think about the situation. Our